Hello ratbags, it's Jade, welcome to my top 30 survival console games. I've done this video last year where we did top 15 and it's one of the most popular videos on the channel, so I thought it's about time we revisit it. There's been so many brand new survival games come to console, I definitely think it's time to add some more to my list. I'm going to briefly run down 30 to 20 and bear in mind when I talk about the best, it doesn't mean they're the best games ever, but strictly in survival terms, this is kind of the pick of the bunch. You're going to agree with me, you're going to disagree with me, and that's okay. Remember, it's my personal opinion, but based on my experience covering survival games pretty much for 3 years now. Every single big major launch on console, I've been there with guides, tutorials and news, and I will continue to do that. So if you want the best in survival news, information and that gameplay when it hits, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you got a notification bell turned on. If you want to support the channel, go and check out my Patreon where you can join up for little as $1 and get some exclusive rewards and access. Anywho, another disclaimer before we start. What class is a survival game? For me, it has to have a few certain things. It either has to have a pressing need. That can be food, that can be water, that can be running away from cold or hot temperatures, or a lack of oxygen. These are the kinds of things that make gameplay, survival gameplay, pressing, that you have to carry on finding certain resources to live. Now, not all the games on this list will have certain mechanics like that, but they have enough of the rest that make up a lot of survival games, like crafting, like a good variety of enemies, and the way that the enemies attack you periodically. I think that is important when talking about these types of games. Add base building and some games having competitive multiplayer, and you definitely can argue that some of these games aren't strictly true survival, but hey, it's my list, I'll do what I want. You're not going to see Dying Light or The Last of Us because I class them as more third person action adventure games rather than just straight up survival, but there will be some anomalies, so don't worry too much about that. Just sit back, relax and enjoy. These are the best survival games on console from May 2020, so don't be commenting asking where Rust is, it's not out on console yet. I will add the systems that the game is available on, as well as give you info on whether or not it's coming to any of the other systems in the future too. But I do want to know what your favourite top 3 survival games are, so leave that in the comments down below. Let's go, top 30 survival console games. Frostpunk is a fantastic, great simulation survival game. It's probably going to be one of the more unique ones on this list. You have to battle the elements as you try and keep your settlement away from the freezing dangers. You have to build out and expand, and it's that reliance on making sure you've got enough heat pumping through your settlement. Really key to this game. I absolutely love this. Available on Xbox, PlayStation and the PC. Great game if you want something a little bit different from your simulation games with that little bit more urgency, and that's what this survival element does to it. You're not simply just going to run out of money and ask the bank for more. You're going to have to make big decisions on who gets medical treatment, who is going to need that help, who is going to get the best of the food, and these kinds of decisions really shape and make Frostpunk a really compelling game. Because it is more of a simulation though, that's why I've put it as top 30. Definitely something I think you should check out if you're a survival fan and maybe that crossover to simulation. The Solus Project is a walk-in exploration simulator game, but it has got survival elements where you're basically on an alien planet trying to solve a mystery. You have to survive against the elements, making sure that you're aware of the cold dips and the heat spikes, as well as meteorite falls, and it's pretty damn scary too. You won't be running around shooting face huggers, but there are some survival and light puzzle elements in this game as well. It makes it a bit more unique and a bit more different. This list is going to be filled with janky games that sometimes you may question why I bothered, but you have to look past some of the bugs sometimes and see what the overall package has. Pixark has got lots of them problems, it is really janky and it's not supported as much on Xbox and PlayStation or Nintendo Switch as it is on PC, but what you do have is an enjoyable game to play with family. If you're looking to get into survival with some of your young ones, then this may just about cover it for you. Kona is a story-based exploration puzzle game where you'll be running away from wolves, as well as making sure you don't freeze to death as you explore some deep mystery in the cold wilds. Definitely again a bit of an old one and a left field choice, but if you're looking for a survival experience with a little bit more meat and potatoes, then for sure Kona will offer that. Not much in replayability though. Once you've done the story once, you probably won't be touching it too often again. Zombie U started out as strictly just a Wii U exclusive, but it finally got brought to Xbox and the PlayStation 4, and you know what, it's a decent little survival game. There's not necessarily as much pressing needs, you don't have to worry about food or hunger in this game, but there is lots of replayability in it. Trying to get your gear back when you die from your own zombified corpse is a real challenge. There's lots of scary moments in this game, lots of crafting and exploration, and I think it just about survives as a survival game rather than just an RPG or a scary game like Outlast. Of course, it has got the cliched zombies in it. We're going to be seeing them a lot more in this video, but for sure, Zombies a great little scary exploration crafting game if you're looking again for something that just has a bit of a traditional feel to it. By their very nature, a lot of survival games are grindy and repetitive, and a lot of big reviewers for big sites often make the mistake of giving it low marks because of this. But you guys know, as survival fans, this is kind of what you like. You like that nature of surviving and building yourself up and gathering all the resources, even if it does take such a long time. Ancestors is a decent little game. It's got some real good simulation survival mechanics in it, but it does have a little bit too much repetitiveness in it. You start out as these arthropods trying to basically evolve, and you have to learn and adapt and figure out certain items and how they work by examining them a lot. You also have to keep your tribe, your clan alive, and you can pass on your traits to your members if the worst does happen. It also ticks the playing as an animal. That is something a lot of players like when they play survival games too. So yeah, Ancestors is halfway decent. There's going to be a fair few games in this list that have caused controversy. We Happy Few definitely caused a lot of that. It's had a lot of low points all throughout its life. Starting out as a strictly survival game but procedurally generated, the developers took a lot of feedback from its first viewings and basically decided to add a lot more story to it. It caused a massive long delay, they increased the price, they ended up getting a big publisher in Gearbox, and it kind of pissed off a lot of the fans. When it did launch, it was buggy, broken, and it was just missing a bit of cohesion. But underneath all that, you do have a very solid survival experience. There's lots of different game modes also to make it either easier or harder if you're not as down, and it's definitely got some quirks. I like the story in it, I like the way it blends, there's lots of good voice acting in it too, and with them survival mechanics, I think it's definitely worth a visit in the top 30, especially if you can pick it up on sale. The How to Survive franchise was something I left off from my last list, and well, quite frankly, it's a bit janky and it's just a bit crap. But it does have some decent benefits as a co-op game. Playing it with your friends, running around attacking zombies with crafted weapons is a bit of a fun experience. You can find all sorts of gear, leveling up your character, getting better, and obviously headshotting as many zombies as possible. Again, it's also a bit different because it's isometric in a way, and I really like the idea of this one. Rust is coming. Fact, it will be on Xbox and PlayStation this year, and I've been looking for something to train me up a little bit, something a bit first person like, but has them survival mechanics. I thought Memories of Mars would do the job, but they took away a lot of the PvP nature of the game, only having zones where you can have PvP interactions. So it makes a lot of the game pointless. There's loads of base building, but you don't need to worry because no one can offline base raid you unless you go onto community servers. So if you're going to buy this game and you want something a bit more PvP eccentric, you'll have to go through a lot of them community servers to find one that's got all out open PvP, and I think that's really where this game shines. There just isn't enough content in PvE to make it interesting exploring Mars, but for sure, if you find that community server that's all PvP, then you might have the closest thing you're going to find till Rust comes out. So, you know, I said I'm going to cause some controversy, or maybe some of these games will be controversial. Look, I put this as number 15 last year, and oh my god, the amount of abuse I got. Let's face it, Fallout 76 has had a horrendous time of it, and that's all down to Bethesda and the stupid, idiotic mistakes they've made. But when you boil it down, and I'll still say it right now, for survival fans, it has been a fairly okay experience. That's just it, it's an okay experience. It's not the survival PvP game that I thought it could be. I actually wanted it to be like Rust, and I'm a bit disappointed they got rid of the survival beta where it's much more harder PvP. But hey, it's pleasing the Fallout fans now, and it's maybe just about a generic survival game. Only they added single player, I think that would please a lot of people. Honestly, I'm putting all these games together now so we can just get on with the good stuff. Atlas is again another game mired in controversy. It kind of really didn't live up to a lot of the trailers and a lot of the hype, although that was kind of overtaken by a lot of Sea of Thieves fans that expected this game to be something very different. It is Ark reskinned, made more in depth with lots and lots of exploration, lots of items to craft and combine, and it's got some really good mechanics in building the ships and lots of locations if you really take the time. It has single player as well, even though it was meant to be an MMO, and it really could maybe be something in the future, but the devs have all but abandoned this game, only releasing one tiny little update adding a fire ballista in the last 5 months. The game does have its lowest population it's ever had on Steam right now, although apparently it's still thriving on Xbox. Maybe don't want this appearing on PlayStation just yet. So for a while I'd been hyping up Space Engineers knowing it was coming to console and looking forward to it, and then it hit and I saw lots of reviews stating that it was basically running like crap. The performance was bad and there wasn't as much you could do in terms of build stuff. There was a limit to how much you could build. Plus the multiplayer was nerfed quite a bit, only allowing one other player to join you on a base Xbox and only up to 4 players on an Xbox X. I gave it a swerve for a while, but I picked it up recently. And despite them issues, it's decent. It's a good little experience. You've got the sandbox stuff where you can create whatever you want. You've got the survival scenarios which are really good. I just wish it does improve on it and gets it up to par a little bit like the PC version is, which is absolutely great. Sometimes I can be pretty harsh and critical. I think it's because I've played so many of these janky survival games that often when a new one comes along, I'm less forgiving. Citadel Forged with Fire has been in early access for a long time and suddenly they announced it was come to Xbox and PlayStation. I was a bit skeptical that it seemed a bit of a cash run, and I'm kind of half right. They've been updating the game since it came out last October, but the updates have just been a little bit lukewarm. They're still trying to make the game a little bit more livable, having more creatures, more enemies and more endgame content, and that was my biggest criticism. It just didn't have a lot to do once you got through the first stages. I also found the game pretty grindy. A lot of people don't. They find that there's lots of spells and lots of items to relieve that, but for me it was just a little bit too repetitive and not a lot going on in the world. Its saving point though was playing it in PvP, and that's what makes this a survival game. There are no real food mechanics or anything like that, but building your bases and making sure they're defendable against lots of enemies, that's a really big plus feature for me. So if you're going to buy this game, buy it to play PvP or to build lots of pretty castles. Another game I was pretty critical of, and I have to say I was wrong. I've recently revisited Outward, and you know what? It's got some great mechanics in this game. It is a bit janky and the graphics are a bit left to be desired, but what you do have is a really in-depth RPG survival game, and now it's got full proper co-op in it as well, where you can play with your friends or even split screen. It's definitely offering something a lot of the other games don't. They've added DLC, or they've got new DLC on the way too, and I really think it's fleshed out the game. They've updated the game for free, adding more mobs, difficulties and new ways to play, and I think overall it's improved Outward massively in the time it's been out. A mix of Skyrim and Dark Souls, but with survival, I definitely think Outward's worth a visit in 2020. Criminally overlooked when it came out, Fade Silence is a decent little RPG survival game with city building elements. You can expand your own fort, you can add structures to it and get NPCs to come and help you and craft and build and increase your defences, where you'll be attacked by these really horrifying creatures. While you're running out in the wild, you've got to be wary of the cold temperature, big snowstorms that will freeze you and kill you, and obviously you've got to make sure you've got enough food and resources to live. It's got story elements, it's got quite a lot of longevity with the map opening up if you can just get through the first few hours, where it is a bit repetitive and a bit grindy. I think you'll find something really is a bit more special. This is definitely a great one to play with your kids, or just you if you like colourful characters or a bit of anime. Dragon Quest Builders 2 is a great little game. It's got lots of different options, either going out there and exploring and being an adventurer, finding NPCs and getting them to come back with you, or simply gathering resources to build the village or settlement of your dreams. There's lots of different combat options in it as well, which I really like. Lots of different enemy types. Overall, a great colourful game, not just for your kids, but certainly your kids will love it. If they've been looking at Pixark, turn their eyes away and make sure they pick up Dragon Quest Builders instead. Finally arriving on console after such a long time and so many issues, Stranded Deep is competent. It's got some good exploration in it and it's got some good survival mechanics for the first few hours. Afterwards though, you start to realise how little content there is. You can replay the game by creating your own maps, and that's a feature they have bought for the console versions, but it still just does get a little bit repetitive. And with no split screen, no co-op yet, it really does become a bit old pretty quickly. There's just not a lot to do, and there's not a lot of endgame content. I really do hope they add multiplayer in some way. I think it would extend the life of this. Maybe a little bit like Astroneer did, although it's had criticism for its co-op play being a little bit crap on performance. They're about to add dedicated servers and full automation, and this is definitely going to be great for players who maybe want to play in larger groups. Even without that, I love Astroneer. It's so creative, it's so colourful. There's lots to do in terms of crafting and finding lots of workbenches and things that will get you from one planet to the other as you make your quest home. And that's the whole objective of the game, is to keep going from one planet to another so that eventually you arrive there. There's lots of terraforming, lots of gathering resources, and it's just really colourful and bright. I really like the mechanics. Obviously still fighting out against the oxygen as well. Running out is no joke. Messing around on Land Rovers is fun, as well as the jetpack and all sorts of other stuff that you can craft and unlock. A really good game to play with your friends or just on your own to chill with. For sure, Astroneer is one of my favourite chill games. Oh boy, another zombie game. State of Decay 2 didn't really smash it out the park when it came out. It had a lot of criticism for not maybe evolving enough, but in a year or so it's been out, I've had a bunch of improvements added to the game, loads of free updates, loads of free content, and it's pretty decent now, making sure that your camp has got the right types of NPCs, building up over time, foraging, gathering resources, and obviously dealing with the multitude of the zombies. I think it really adds it to this genre, and definitely State of Decay 2 is worthwhile as a decent survival experience. Definitely one of them games that has improved over time and definitely worth a shout now in 2020. Oh boy, don't get me started on how long it'll take to go through all of Dayz's problems and issues on consoles. Quite simply, it's one of the worst port jobs I've ever seen. So many bugs, so many problems, and they've just not been that fixed. They've had updates for sure, but each update seems to break the game even more, particularly bad on console rather than PC. I've been pretty angry with the developers of this game. I've been calling them out on Twitter as regular intervals because they just simply don't seem to understand the concept of getting the game in a stable position. It's also why I stopped covering it, even though it was one of the most successful games on my channel for a long time, because it just gets really boring dealing with the bugs and problems. But take that aside, and what you have is a really unique experience unlike no other. Coming across other players is the most fun. Gauging whether or not you're going to have a shootout, whether or not you'll find a friend, is pretty much the best experience you'll find in a survival game like this, and it's not necessarily as toxic as you imagine. It does get pretty old and boring having to loot every single building just to find a can of beans, and they definitely need to fix the loot spawn issues to make it a bit more of an enjoyable experience. But for sure, there is no other game like it. Not on console at least, anyway. So next time you see this on sale or go and try it on the Xbox Games Pass at the moment, for sure, give it a try. Otherwise, maybe wait and see if the developers do ever try and get the game in a better state. We're on our top 10 already. I know I've been pretty short with some of these, but obviously I want to get through all 30. The Long Dark is a great survival sandbox experience, running around the cold wilds of Canada, trying to survive against wolves and obviously the extreme temperatures. I absolutely love playing this game. The story mode is still a little bit slow in progress. Part 3 of 5 has just come out this year, and it looks like we're going to be waiting until next year for the next one, but most people buy this game for the survival mode rather than the story mode. Lots of challenges, lots of variations, lots of different difficulties to play the game, and like I said, that story mode will keep you occupied for a good few hours and kind of teach you how to play the game as well before maybe jumping into the survival sandboxes. Lots of different maps, and they're going to be updating the game again this year with more survival updates. Stuff to come for the Long Dark. So I've mentioned a few games that have had controversies, and I don't think there's any game that's bigger than No Man's Sky. And yes, we'll be here today talking about that too, but let's focus on what they have done in just the last 6 months. 5 updates, adding a whole host of new content like the mech suit recently, a bunch of new stuff like the living ships. This game has just got better and better. They've gone beyond what they were missing at the start. Yes, they lied. Yes, they didn't have the game going with what they said it would, but since then they've added so much more. It's coming up to 3 years now since its full release, and the future is still not stopping for No Man's Sky. They've got big plans for the rest of this year. Hello Games are not stopping support for this game, and definitely as a survival experience, it's maybe not as hardcore as some of the other games. You only have to worry about oxygen after all. But with all the base building, with all the crafting and all the exploration, I definitely think No Man's Sky is one of the top 10 survival games you can play on console right now. So many ways to play, so many different avenues, and you can play it with your friends as well. For sure, No Man's Sky is deserving of number 9. Okay, strictly it doesn't have any survival mechanics in it. There's no food or hunger bar, you can simply just replenish your health by eating, but it doesn't drain over time. You don't have to worry about oxygen either, it is more of an RPG, a bit of an exploration game. But Terraria has so many of the other survival mechanics in it, the crafting, the worrying about enemies, and I think that's what really tips it as a survival game for me. Every single night you're going to have enemies trying to break down your defences, and that's what sets it apart from some other games. And I really do think it is a decent game. In fact, it's one of my top 5 games overall, so for sure I do want to put it in there. Whether or not it deserves a place this high, I'll leave that for you guys to judge. I probably could have slipped it in a bit later since it's not technically a full survival game, but there are lots of enemies, there's lots of different ways to play, lots of items to go and find. All in it, I don't care if you like it or not, Terraria is a survival game and I said so, it's there, no questions asked. No matter how janky these games are sometimes, no matter how badly supported they are, they're still your favourite survival games and they are still mine. 7 Days to Die hasn't had an update on console in 2 years, maybe even longer. It's coming up to 3, I swear. I have been giving you guys the news and info about what's happening with this title for such a long time, and I have absolutely zero confidence we'll ever see an update for the console version, even when PC's getting all the nice shiny new stuff. But that aside, it's still a load of fun playing this game, even on Xbox, PlayStation, even with the bugs that delete your world after 160 odd days or whatever it is, there's still a load to be had in building up defences, a bit like Terraria, getting prepared every single night and obviously every 7 days for that zombie horde. There's no better game for trying something out with your friends and trying different ways to survive. Mixing up the mechanics, adding new different base defences, or just going around exploring and trying to survive in a blood moon. For sure, 7 Days to Die, despite all its issues on console, despite that lack of updates, is still one of the best survival games out there, even if it is a bit of a janky mess. Another bit of a left field choice for some maybe, I think Don't Starve is the quintessential survival game. When you die, that's it, you've got to start all over again. It is a roguelike and you've got to worry about your food, you've got to worry about the temperature effects, you've got to worry about so many different style creatures and enemies, all the while trying to craft and upgrade yourself and explore lots of different lands. Procedural generated, it means that you've always got something to come back to and try again, and you'll have a new experience every single time. A bunch of DLC and of course Don't Starve together, the multiplayer version of the game, and you've got lots of things to do with this franchise. Challenging, super tough, Don't Starve is one of the hardest survival games out there, and if you haven't played it by now, you should definitely give it a try. Ignore the cartoony graphics if that's not what floats your boat. You really will find some deep mechanics here and some great survival stuff. I want to rag on Ark Survival Evolved, I really do. I want to sit here and talk about all the problems and issues and bugs and the way the developers just can't seem to get an update right to save their lives or launch DLC that actually works for console. You guys have had it the worst. No matter all the problems this game's had, on Xbox and PlayStation, with every update it seems to break the game even more. But I'm not going to do that, I'm going to try and just talk about the positive stuff. Ark simply is a phenomenon. It really popularised survival. Believe it or not, you've had games like Dayz and Minecraft, but it's Ark that really brought it more mainstream to a lot better and bigger audiences. Of course Minecraft is huge, but Ark is one of them ones that really cemented itself on an Xbox One and a PlayStation 4 as the new breed of survival. And it's got so many good things in it. Who doesn't want to run around on dinosaurs, taming loads of creatures, battling other players, even if it is a bit tower defense rather than actual proper PvP. Ark's got so many good qualities to it. The crafting, the amount of exploration, the places you can explore, Some of the free maps they've brought out have been absolutely phenomenal and they're definitely a lot of people's favourites. The paid DLC, meh. They tried doing something different with the latest to Genesis, adding single player sort of story content, and I appreciated it, I liked it. It's just such a shame they implemented it in such a poor way. Most of it being broken, the rewards for it being not great, and overall just not being a great experience. That's why I had to take a little break from Ark Survival Evolved. I just really got sick of seeing so much negativity, and I maybe was being a bit over negative myself, but I'm looking forward to having a bit of a break still and then returning for the Crystal Wilds, and fingers crossed just once maybe this time Wildcard can update the game without breaking it even more. By looks of things, they're going to carry on updating the game for years to come. They may even work on Ark 2. I reckon they're going to start pushing out yearly DLC. And we've got Genesis Part 2 still coming out this winter time. If they could just get stuff fixed and hopefully the TLC and quality of life improvements made more often, I'll rate it higher next time. So a swap from last year, and also because I've done Ark versus Conan a little bit more recently, I actually gave it to Conan as the better survival game. Now hear me out, Ark fans, hear me out. Conan has got a bit more structure in it. It's got the missions in it, or quests. It's just got a bit more going for you if you're particularly a single player. I think you can play Conan Exiles like a fantasy survival RPG, a little bit like Skyrim or a little bit like Outward, and I think that's where it really shines. Alongside that though, I also do think the PvP aspects are much better than Ark. Ark really is dino defense. Conan is a lot more engaging in terms of coming up against other players and having proper battles and fights. It definitely needs a little bit more work though, and I'm hoping the following system that they're improving this year is going to carry on expanding the game, and eventually we'll get to the point where you can have thralls that do patrols and followers that really will guard your bases. They also do need to fix the avatar situation that's been missing. They've missing avatars for the last 9 months or so. The big massive gods that you can use to smite your foes, which really only have a use in PvP. But for sure, for me, Conan Exiles has had the better development over the last year. It's had the best support, it's had more communication, and they've tried their best to resolve a lot of the long-standing issues. They've also updated the game a lot more frequently with lots of free content, as well as paid DLC, and for me, that all just means that as an experience right now, Conan Exiles has a lot to offer. It doesn't mean Ark is a worse game, but for me it does mean that Conan is a better bet if you like reliability in updates, you like lots and lots of open talk from developers, and you want a content that's going to be carrying on being developed and updated more frequently. I rest my case, Your Honour. Yeah. Conan Exiles has got great building mechanics, it's got great exploration. I hope they kind of calm down a little bit on the paid DLCs though. Like I said, I think there's a good balance between free content and paid content, and obviously we have got a brand new map expansion. I hope that goes down well, and I hope it offers something fresh. Conan does get a bit boring after a while because the map is relatively small, and the limited size of the players that you can have, only 40, does hinder the game quite a bit. I hope they figure something out to open transfers for characters. But otherwise, as a single player experience or just with your friends, I really like Conan Exiles. I think it's just got a lot more to role playing abilities, and it's got that Skyrim-esque feel to it. Admittedly, the missions aren't structured or that great, but it's still got lots of nice points of interest and locations to go and discover. It just does get a bit old once you've done it the 5th or 6th time. It's been really hard doing this list, thinking objectively a little bit about what's overall the best survival games for lots of players, and then I've kind of decided no, I'll put in more about what I personally prefer playing, and so it's a good bit of a mix here. It's not going to be the most objective because nothing can be the objective when you've got a list, but for sure I think I've given you an honest opinion. So bear that in mind when we go for the top 3, and number 3 is Minecraft. Last year I didn't include it in the actual top 15, I just referenced it at the end, and honestly I felt really bad. I said it wasn't a survival game anymore because it was more creative and more sandboxy, but I've recently been playing it a lot more with my daughter who's got into it, and you know what, it's still scary as crap getting a zombie come up behind you and start tapping on your door. It is a survival game, of course it is, and of course it's one of the best games ever. Minecraft still has so much to offer, and with the new updates coming for the Nether, it's still going to carry on. It may not be cool to go, yeah, Minecraft's in your top 3, but I think quintessentially it's the godfather of survival games. Without Minecraft, we wouldn't have any of these other games that you've seen. They really did take a lot of inspiration from Minecraft, and so it absolutely deserves its place in my top 3 survival games. Much has changed between number 2 and number 1. Subnautica is still number 2 in terms of survival. It's got scary moments in it. It's got that need for food, water, and of course oxygen as you're exploring the underwater depths. There's nothing scarier than a leviathan jumping up at you. And really, I don't even like these games, hence why I don't include games like Outlast. But this is the closest I'll get to playing it, because I love exploring the rest of the game. I love going around, finding new resources, having to think about what I'm going to craft, and of course building things like the Sea Glide and your own submarine vessel. There's lots of pretty locations to explore, and it's got a decent little story to it as well that drives you along. I'm excited about what Below Zero could be like for Xbox and PlayStation, but I do hope the developers add a lot more in terms of performance. It's been a long-standing issue on console. Even with full release, there's still been lots of complaints that it just doesn't run as well as it should do. They've been updating the game recently, and hopefully that's fixed a lot of problems for the Xbox and PlayStation versions. But that aside, Subnautica is just simply one of the best. It made me want to explore more, it made me want to play the game more, and I haven't been lost in the game for 6 hours at a time like I have with Subnautica than I have in such a long time playing lots of other games. So even with them big huge scary leviathans, I will carry on playing Subnautica, and I will carry on giving you the news and information about Below Zero coming to console in the future. So no change from number 1, I rate The Forest as my best survival game you can play. There's lots of various different reasons why I'll place Minecraft not at number 1, is because it's still a great survival game and it was the godfather of survival games, but it's no longer the most challenging survival game, and I think The Forest has got that in it. It's got a challenge. It's a survival game where you're stuck on an island after a crash and you've got to find poor little old Timmy. That bastard son of yours has gone missing again, and the scariness comes from the mutants you find. It absolutely freaks me out when I come across these guys. The way they periodically attack you, the way you have to build up your bases and defences. Games like this, like 7 Days to Die, offer that bit of extra anxiety when creatures come and attack you, and I think that's why I rate Forest as number 1, because it adds that bit of extra anxiety. Now normally I don't like that stuff, but it just adds that bit of challenge to it. It adds something a bit more than some of the other survival games where you kind of have to go looking for trouble. Well, the trouble finds you in The Forest. Add to that, it's not too grindy either. Yes, it can take a while to get your bases up, your wood log cabin, but you can do the story pretty quickly, and it's just got a nice beginning and end to it. The story beats are there, there's a few nice little cutscenes, and there's a point to playing the game, and that's what I like in survival games. I don't like big huge sandbox games like Ark and Conan as much as I used to. I like survival, smaller games, more intimate. It hasn't had much in the way of updates, and I don't think it needs to. I've had this argument with a few people in the past. It's a complete game. There is an ending to it. You can have lots of fun. There's lots of replayability in making the game more difficult or setting up new challenges for yourself. So I think there is lots of replayability there if you want it. But for me, it's just a complete experience. It offers a compelling, scary at times, and a great way to craft lots of weapons, find lots of stuff as well, not just simply become too OP. You've got to go and find the blueprints before you can craft a lot of the stuff, and I just think it adds an overall element to the game that lots of things are kind of missing. It just doesn't gel as many of the good things together as The Forest does. Agree, disagree, let me know in the comment section down below. What would you had as number 1? I will be here though to cover the Sons of the Forest. Really excited, really hyped for that. When it comes, I will be hitting this with all my might, and if I find any news, which is really hard to come by at the moment, I will deliver it as soon as possible. Keep me locked for the best in survival on console and the new stuff that's coming to PC, and I'll see you ratbags for another survival list very soon.